Today we're bringing music and melody to the CNBC Africa studio. I'm here in conversation with three-time Grammy Award-winning flautist, composer, producer and philanthropist Wouter Kellerman. He brought his third Grammy home to South Africa from Los Angeles in February this year and has taken the music of Africa to the world stage. Wouter, what a great pleasure to be sitting here with a three-time Grammy Award-winning artist. When you were young, you wanted to win a Grammy nomination, and here you are with 3 Grammy Awards. Have you put them all in a showcase, I hope, in South Africa?
Thank you, Renuka. The third one still has to arrive.
Oh.
You know, when you win the Grammy, nobody knows who wins the Grammy until the day, and then they still have to engrave it.
Right.
So I'm waiting anxiously for the third one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely have to, I think, reinforce my cupboard so it can handle the extra weight.
That's wonderful. What an honor. So, you know, before we actually talk about all the critical praise that you've received, you've done concerts, sold out concerts around the world, all the way from Sydney to Shanghai to South Africa to New York, virtually every city in the world. You've won a lot of awards, too many awards to count. I just want to go back in time to that little boy who was given a flute for the very first time. And then was it an accidental entry in the world of music? What actually brought you to be playing the flute when you were so young?
My parents were very much into music, and so when I was 10 years old, they took me to a symphony concert and asked me which instrument I'd like to play. And I liked the idea of using my breath to express myself, like in speaking or singing. It just felt more natural. And my brother chose the clarinet. Yeah. And I noticed that the other wind instruments all pointed to the front, but the flute must be special because it points to the side. That, as a 10-year-old, that was my kind of thinking. And so I chose the flute, and on the first day of my lesson, my teacher was sick, and my mom would not allow me to put the flute together because she was worried we're going to break it already. So every day I opened the flute case and had a look and wondered, what would this sound like? How would it feel? So by the next week, when I had my first lesson, I was so keen. I was ready to go, and I loved it from the first moment. I just fell in love with the flute. And the teacher had a lot to do with it. She was so encouraging and amazing. And I played every day through my whole schooling time. And when I finished school, I was ready to take music, study music, and do it for a living, but we didn't have money for me to go to university. So I had to study something I could get a scholarship for, and that was engineering. My second talent is mathematics.
Yes, that's your second love. You've mentioned that several times before.
Yeah. So I studied engineering at University of Johannesburg, still playing the flute every day. And after university, I had to go and work back on the coal mines for my employer at the time. And that didn't last long. So I ended up starting my own software engineering company for a few years, and then tried to swap over to become a full-time musician. In the meanwhile, I had kids and things were expensive. So within 6 months, my money ran out. Right. And then I had to go back to engineering. And I ended up being a single dad, and had to do the taxi. I'll be the taxi dad and the homework dad. And so every time I tried to swap over to music, it didn't work. I couldn't tour. I didn't want to be away from home. So my story is very similar to that of many mothers who prioritize their kids first, and then eventually, at the age of 44, I finally succeeded in making the transition because my kids were grown up. Right. Things were a whole lot cheaper because no more school and university fees. Sure. And then I just put all my passion that I've been waiting for so long for this moment, and I just went full blast.
So a full-time musician now, and you mentioned mathematics. There is a lot of correlation between music and math, isn't there?
Yeah, for me it's quite a natural, coexistence, and to use both. To me, music, I don't know, it just feels like I am using the whole brain. And also the music business is quite rational, and that's a very important part of being a musician. Yes. So it kind of works for me, because if I do just music without any rationalizing, I do miss that. So the music business is kind of the perfect place for me.
Right, and engineering, is that something you left the software company?
Yeah, completely. Yeah. I'm not doing it at all at the moment. I ran the software company in the mornings, and in the afternoons I'd be the taxi dad, and in the evenings I'd have time to play the flute.
Play music. Wonderful. Yeah. So in 2015, you won the Grammy for Winds of Samsara. Yeah. And then in 2023, it was a collaborative effort for Baete. Yeah. And of course, that's with Zakes Bantwini and Nomclebo Zikode. And now in 2025, it's Triveni. Yeah. I've listened to it, and it's absolutely magical. The Indian sounds and nuances, all of that, so beautiful. So that I would like to mention that mention a little more about it. It's obviously with the big Indian entrepreneur Chandrika Tandon. Yeah. And then, of course, Iru Matsumoto. So you won the Grammy for the Best New Age category. And I remember you mentioned that you did 43 interviews in 2 weeks after winning the Grammy this year. Yeah. So what was that experience like, being on stage, for yet another collaborative effort? Yeah. What was the feeling? I mean, and you did mention when I met you recently that you're looking forward to your 4th Grammy next year.
That's kind of tongue in the cheek, but it is in the back of my mind, obviously. For me, what gets me up in the morning is just to make beautiful music and send good energy into the world. And that's kind of my life's mission. It's just to send this good energy. And what happened with this album is my collaborators, Chandrika and Eru, also are on the same mission. They make the similar kind of, they've got a similar kind of spirit and energy. And we actually get together and decided to make an album specifically for healing purposes, to make something that heals. So, we decided we're going to also link it to some scientific research and see if we can prove that everybody knows music is good for you, and it can heal, and it can bring about changes in mood and even physical changes. Sure. But so we set out specifically on that path for this album. And so, but it's a lonely process when you work at home. You don't really know if it's going to work, whether people will understand what you had intended. Will they get the positive vibes that you're sending them or not? So to be there at the Grammys and to be recognized and to realize, yes, people are getting it, that's so special and just incredibly beautiful moment.
But, as a classical musician and then also with world music and jazz music and, traversing all of these diverse musical genres around the world, and we've done collaborations. So I just want to, talk about the collaboration space in music. I mean, it's not all competition, is it? I mean, obviously competition drives innovation, but how important is the power of collaboration to you?
Yeah, I just find it amazing. Collaborating with artists often can be really difficult because it takes you out of your comfort zone. But the advantage is that it takes you to places that you never thought you'd go to, and places that you didn't even know existed. Right. And you're kind of forced into that place, which is a really beautiful place to be. It can be very uncomfortable. Yes. For example, this album was tricky because we're from such diverse backgrounds, that often one or two people of the 3 collaborators will like it and the other one wouldn't. And it took us a while to find that sweet spot. But I think there's a commonality. I'm fascinated with the roots music all over the world, and it feels like there's a magical link that links us, that goes back thousands of years into the past, and we find a common ancestry. And that's kind of how it feels, and it's just to find that spot and that root. And when you get there, it's just like nothing else.
Sure. Just tell me a little more about it. I mean, you very well entrenched in Indian music as well. You played for the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi when he visited South Africa in 2016, was it?
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've collaborated with the Indian entrepreneur as well. well entrenched are you in the crossover music around the world? I mean, as a flautist, is it easy to understand? Because the flute is a very popular instrument even in India, for instance.
So I kind of, we've also worked with the Rajasthani and folk musicians in India, and that was an incredible experience because they'd never left their little town. They received the music from their parents and their grandparents. Right. So we were flown to the Rajasthan International Folk Festival a week earlier to see what we could do. And we didn't speak their language, they didn't speak any English.
Right, but the language of music is universal.
Yeah, it was just amazing to actually see that happening. So I just think, that collaboration came together so easily. And it really surprised all of us. My band would still say that's the highlight of all their travels with me. Yeah. So I do find that, but I do find that I don't try and get 100% into the Indian flavors, because I don't want to do what the Bansuri players do, obviously. Because they do their music so beautifully, but I want to bring what I have. So I meet them somewhere in the middle. That's beautiful. And I don't learn all the ragas and make sure that I'm a specialist in their field. And same when I did a flamenco crossover song or a tango song. I meet them somewhere in the middle, and then we create something very unique and special.
But that's what's called the bridging of cultures and melodies and music. You have to meet in the middle, and then it just becomes even more beautiful than what it is. But you've also collaborated with, I mentioned the South African artist before for the Grammy in 2023, but also with Tanzanian artist Diamond Platinums. So are you looking to collaborate with other artists across Africa?
Yes, we've got some things in the pipeline.
Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Not yet, it's still to be confirmed.
To the next Grammy, obviously.
You never know how a collaboration is going to work out. So people only see the final product. They don't realize all the U-turns and dead ends that you met along. So even on this past album, many songs were abandoned. Many took many different routes. So I can't really say how it's going to turn out, but there's some really exciting projects coming up. I love collaborating with with roots musicians everywhere. But specifically African, is very close to my heart.
And part of what you do is also mentoring young people, empowering them. You have worked with the Ndlovu Youth Choir, for example. But I want to touch on the point of, even when you're mentoring these young people, is there really money in music? We do understand that, like, for example, Afrobeats is taking the world by storm. The world is catching up with African music. It really is in vogue, and you see a lot of these young people winning Grammys now. But in terms of it being a lucrative business that young people can invest their time and energies in, what are your thoughts on that?
It can be, definitely. The one perfect example is the Ndlovu Youth Choir. When we met them, we were looking for a choir for a corporate event, and the Soweto Gospel Choir was not available. So I started looking around, and the Ndlovu Youth Choir, we found them 3 hours from Johannesburg in Mutse, and they had hardly any work. They weren't a professional choir. They were kind of a way to keep the kids off the street. And but they were absolutely amazing. So I thought, let me do a song with them and see if I can help them broadcast their talents to the world. So we did a Zulu version of Ed Sheeran's song Shape of You, and that song went viral. And then America's Got Talent reached out to them after seeing this video and said, come enter. And their management team is excellent, so they managed to pull it all together, and the kids were amazing. They went all the way through all the rounds to the finals of America's Got Talent, while the whole of South Africa watched every round. So when they came back, they were so famous in South Africa that they got so much work. In the next year, they made many, many years of income. And now each child is able to financially look after a whole family from the musical income. So that is just a beautiful story. And these kids were ready. They were ready. They were musically ready. They were organizationally ready, they were competent, they were business ready, and they just needed a little bit of a helping hand, which I happened to be there. And the same happened with the Mzansi Youth Choir, similar trajectory.
Sure.
And these kids are doing amazingly, and they are earning good money. So it's definitely possible. I wouldn't say music, I mean, I don't think music is the best way to earn money.
Mm-hmm.
There are easier and better ways, but definitely viable, and you can do really well.
Right, and definitely seeing, they will be encouraged seeing role models like you. I mean, you're up, on the stage in Los Angeles. That's enough reason for them to believe that they can do it too.
Yeah.
Before we go, a couple of things. I do want to talk about your obsession with yoga as well. I know that you've told me earlier that on certain nights you sleep at 3 a.m. playing your music because that's your creative space.
Yeah.
And then you also wake up in the morning and sometimes even practice acrobatic yoga at sunrise on the beach. So you're obviously a health fanatic. You play tennis. Yeah. So it is, I would think, very important to keep a sound mind and a sound body for your craft, isn't it?
And also, playing the flute, you spend so many hours in this position. So you really need to cross-train, otherwise you get injured, like in any sport. So yoga is a kind of a basis where you bend and stretch and strengthen your body in all the different directions. So it's a cross-training for the flute. Right. So it's an essential part of my body is my instrument. So I have to look after the body. I don't always get enough sleep though. I'm still working on that one, but I try and be active every day. And playing the flute itself is a beautiful meditation. Mm-hmm. So I go out in the garden and I'll play long, steady notes, slow breathing. And if I don't do it, even if nobody ever listened, I'd still do that just for myself.
So, Wouter, before we leave, the flute is one of the most melodious instruments of all instruments, I would say. And this is a studio where we normally talk numbers and facts and information. Let's hear some real notes. Is there something you can play for us, for our viewers? So to get some music into the room.
Gladly, yes. Yeah, so the flute is such a versatile instrument. It can make a beautiful melody, like in the low register, it sounds like this. Or in the high register. Or you can do some extended techniques on the flute, which makes it such a versatile instrument. You can take a little melody like a low one like this. Or a high one. And then you can add some beatboxing. We call it flute boxing.
Beautiful. The studio just now became the stage. That was really stunning.
Thank you so much.
You know what you just did? You took me to the sunrise on the beach, and you took me to that meditative space of using the body as an instrument. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Wouter Kellerman, the 3-time Grammy Award-winning artist from Africa.